morning, good afternoon, good evening. Tonight we'd like to focus on the issue of Chamisa coming back and promising that there will be change. I think the real truth is Zimbabweans out there do not know where they are going. As much as they want to live in a Zimbabwe that is prosperous, flowing with milk and honey, the promised land. It is one thing to want to go to the promised land. It is another to know where that promised land is and then how to get there. If you don't know where you're going, you're not likely to get there. Zimbabwe is now looking at 46 years after independence. The country is a failed state. It's become the textbook case of failed state to the whole world. And we seem to be blundering from pillar to post. This is really, truly tragic. Ben, welcome to the program.
Good day to everybody. Thank you for joining us. You know, when a people get to a desperate state, it becomes evident to both the good, bad, and the ugly. And most of the time, the bad and the ugly, they manipulate and take advantage of a situation. And they do as they please. Because, like you said, the people are now, blundering from pillar to post. There is a lot of confusion in the air. They are grabbing straws for dear life. And I think this is the best picture to which I can speak about Zimbabwe. We are in that very state that whoever stands up and tells us or promises us what we need to hear, we flock. And we forget their history, their background. What have they done for us in the past? What have they done to us in the past? And I think this is where we are at, and this is the biggest problem that we face. Yes, we know Zanu PF has been the primary cause of all our hardships. But because of our desperation and because of us not being certain on anything right now which is political, be it knowledgeable or unknowledgeable, we are creating, or we are stirring the mud even worse. You're in quicksand. It's better to stand still sometimes. It'll buy you time to figure out your next move. Rather than fighting, you will only sink even faster. And I think this is where we are, and we have to try and get our heads, our brains back into our heads and think.
Just to let the listeners know, if you want to join us, you can use the link at the bottom of your screen there. Just go to Yard Stream and join the group. And we'd like to hear your views as well. This discussion, we wanted to base it on Change Radio's recent posting on their news, which is the main picture there. I'll just play the first part of it.
Greetings, you are listening to Change Radio News. Today is Friday, the 6th of February, 2026, and the news is read by Olive Ruzizo. And here are the headlines. President Nelson Chamisa's return rattled Zanu PF. Blessed Geza dies. And analysts slam Mnangagwa's Dubai interview. And now for the news in detail. President Nelson Chamisa's return has sent tremors through Zimbabwe's political landscape, unsettling the ruling Zanu PF party. The party has responded with court applications and intensified criticism in state-aligned media. Analysts say Zanu PF's sharp reaction points to unease over President Chamisa's popularity. They described the attacks as damage control rather than confidence. President Chamisa's Agenda 2026, which focuses on governance and reforms, has resonated with citizens amid ongoing political and economic challenges. He has avoided aggressive rhetoric, presenting himself as a statesman for national renewal. With elections approaching, Chamisa's comeback is expected to reshape debate around legitimacy, reform, and Zimbabwe's future. Let us hear more from Honorable Amos Chibaya.
We have governance crisis in Zimbabwe, born out of 2018-2023 disputed elections. Observer missions reports from Qatar Center, EU, AU, Commonwealth, including SADC itself, clearly states that the elections were not free, fair, and credible. This is why Zanu PF is in a panic mode. Following President Nelson Chamisa's announced return to the political dance floor. This is why Zanu PF and all its puppets have all of a sudden been activated. Zanu PF and Mnangagwa know that they are not loved by the people anymore.
I'll stop it there. To the guests who want to join us there, can you please connect your mic and camera? We can't add you until those are connected. Thank you. This announcement is restating the very things that has been on the political agenda all along. We have had reports on elections being flawed from SADC, from the EU, the Americans, and many other people. In 2013, just before the elections, SADC told MDC guys that you should not go into those elections without reforms. And MDC guys did not listen. They had the opportunity to implement the reforms during the GNU. They failed to implement even one. And now all of a sudden, they want to tell us about these reforms, as if all along they didn't know about them. I mean, this is the problem. We never seem to learn. We are repeating the same mistakes here. What is so different now? All of a sudden now they are paying attention to what SADC and the EU have said regarding reforms. Why didn't they pay attention all along? I think this is what is so disappointing about this. We are just going round and round in circles. They haven't announced anything new here. I don't know what you think, Ben.
This is always a classic case of, we've heard this before. They are going to win big. I mean, within the statement, they said with the elections fast approaching, which means we are already in election mode. All other things they acknowledge, but elections is what is important right now. This is all, we've played this line, we've played this tune so many times. Why a lot of people out there do not seem to understand is just mind-boggling. We have heard the report. Everybody listened to the report. Where we should be right now, I think, in all fairness, we should be talking about the recommendations. Because continuously reading the report is not going to, it's like looking at wrong answers. What we did wrong. But on the next page is how we can fix it, which are the corrections. And I think the corrections failed. We need to be fixing our failures, rectifying the shortcomings, and then be talking about any election or any form of competition. Because right now the competition is so unfair, it is so unhealthy, it is not even constitutional. This is where we are at. So if Change Radio is talking about the fast approaching elections, to me straight away is they have an eye on it. And despite the report that they have spoken about, or the reports that they have spoken about, they will want to continue participating in flawed and illegal elections, despite holding the reports in their hands.
The important point there is actually that Nelson Chamisa's announcement in 2018 and 2023 was to tell his supporters and the nation at large that he has devised ways of winning rigged elections. That was the argument. They accept that Zanu PF without reforms will rig the elections. Their strategy is we have devised ways of winning rigged elections. In 2018, his message to the people was MDC Alliance has stringent measures to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. The elections were rigged. The EU, who had the biggest team of election observers, something like 246, plus the assistants they recruited locally, they came out with a detailed report with detailed recommendations, 23 of them. MDC Alliance did not even look at one of those reforms to see that they are implemented. They went into the 2023 elections. And this time, Chamisa was claiming that he has plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. What is annoying here is that the same people are now telling us about the reports and the recommendations of the election observers. And we can be certain of one thing: they'll be participating in 2028 elections without even one reform implemented. They'll come up with another lie that they've devised ways of winning rigged elections. This is what makes this whole thing such a tedious process.
Indeed, I agree with you. I mean, we need to open our minds here and our eyes and see what is going on, because we cannot continue on this vicious cycle. Not only is it tedious, it is very destructive, because when you keep going round and round in circles, you become confused. And a lot of people out there are in that state of confusion. They don't know what to do next, where to turn to next. It's unfair to those that know no better. I mean, like I said, the position that Zimbabweans and the opposition should be at is, we should have been trying now to implement most of the recommendations. We had the best chance and we blew it. And I think we discussed this even with Senator Komichi, who graced us with his presence. And it was highlighted that it was a very good opportunity during the GNU, because the MDC was actually government then, was actually part and parcel of government. And they had sharing of the keys to Zimbabwe. And they also had a good chunk in parliament where they could have tabled, the reforms, the recommendations, because the likes of SADC and AU, EU, and all other observer missions have been giving these recommendations since since I could remember. So it's not the first one that we are saying the 2023 report was bad. Previous reports were bad as well. And when we got to this GNU, the primary purpose, and people need to understand that the primary purpose of the GNU was for the implementation of the recommendations, which are the reforms. And SADC kept knocking at the MDC door. Guys, you need to implement the reforms that we agreed on. Now, it was in fact Changirai who ran and told Mugabe that, hey, these guys are bothering me about the reforms. Instead of Changirai working with SADC to push for those reforms, he did the exact opposite. He chose Mugabe as a friend, and SADC became a foe. The EU became a foe. And that was the golden opportunity lost. So we should realize that there was opportunities for us to have changed our situation, to have changed our plight. But greed, dishonesty took over most of our opposition leaders and left us all high and dry. And they should be accountable and answerable to us And part and parcel of them was the likes of Chamisa. They were part of government as well. Yes, some will say he had a smaller ministry, but ministry or no ministry, he was part and parcel of it.
Well, I'd like to play that Change Radio, continue on that Change Radio report.
Afraid of President Advocate Nelson Chamisa's popularity among the citizens. This is why there is so much noise. Chamisa this, Chamisa that. They just can't stand a genuine and credible alternative as led by the citizens' President Advocate Nelson Chamisa. This is not the first time that Zanu PF is abusing the courts to try and stop the people's choice, Advocate Nelson Chamisa. We saw it in the past when they stole MDC Alliance. We saw it in the past when they stole Triple C via the courts. But I want to state this clearly, that this time around, it won't work. The backing of dogs will not stop the elephant from going about its business. The citizens are solidly behind Advocate Nelson Chamisa. A new great Zimbabwe is loading. God is in it. Aluta continue.
I think it should be emphasized here that Nelson Chamisa is only able to come back on the political stage because 2 million or so of his supporters have no idea what happened in 2023. In a healthy and functioning democratic nation, leaders are held to account. At the beginning of Shubaya's broadcast there, he did acknowledge the problem of participating in flawed elections. And like we said here, it was MDC, Triple C leaders who conned the people to participate in flawed elections. As I said, Chamisa told the people that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. They don't have to worry about Zanu PF rigging the elections. And like it or not, millions believed it. That is a historic fact. And now he's saying he's coming back. In a healthy and functioning democratic nation, the people will be saying, wait a minute, what happened last time? You told us that you had plugged the vote rigging loopholes, and we participated because we believed that. Now it turned out that was not true. They would be holding him to account. Not only about conning them to participate in flawed elections, but the way he abandoned his Triple C party. He is the one who argued that he had this strategic ambiguity to make sure that Triple C does not get infiltrated. And yet, soon after the elections, they emerged Tsavango. And he started recalling some of the elected Triple C members. And it was because there was no structure, no constitution, no elected officials that allowed Savango to emerge. In other words, Chamisa's strategic ambiguity policy backfired. And he resigned, claiming that the party was infiltrated. The very thing that he said would not happen. Just as much as he said he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. And yet that is exactly what happened. We cannot keep on repeating the same mistakes. What is it? What went wrong? People should hold him to account so that they are not conned again. But for him to just waltz back as if nothing has happened and we carry on from where we left off is part and parcel of what we are saying here. That as a nation, we don't know where we are going, much less how to get there. We want a democracy, a healthy and functioning democracy. We have to understand that in a healthy and functioning democracy, leaders are accountable. And that we, the citizens, must also have a clear idea of what is it we want. Ben.
I totally agree with you there. I mean, Zimbabwe cannot be Chamisa's dance floor where you can waltz out and waltz back right in, no questions asked, welcome back, we missed you, and that's about it. And we've always said, one of the fundamental requirements of a democracy or of being a democratic nation is that the citizens of the country should be able to hold those who aspire and are in, holding public office accountable. They are answerable to the people. Here we have a situation where Chamisa manipulated the nation into participating not only once, but 2 times in an election that he had said that he had all vote rigging mechanisms closed. He had everything shut down. He had Zanu PF pinned. And guess what? On each occasion, he failed. And he blamed something else. Now here he comes. And since he left, we kept on telling the people that this guy has not left. He is simply waiting for the situation to die down, where people have got something other than holding him accountable. That's when he will waltz right back in. It's like a voucher. You will circle and circle until the opportune time, and then will come and take their picking. This is exactly what he did. Chamisa knew that he had promised. In fact, he had invoked God and said, God has blessed this. Which was a lie. Unless we are saying God now fails. And that's a very, very different topic. Chamisa is no different from Zanu PF. he has become the second thorn in our flesh. He keeps on participating in rigged elections, knowing fully well that Zanu PF will rig them and get away with it. He knows this. And each and every time he makes an excuse, he blames somebody else. Yet he himself would have lied about it. Take, for example, he said that he had plugged all vote rigging loopholes. Well, guess what? He did not even deploy voting agents, polling agents. He did not deploy them. Monies went missing. And more evidence is coming up that him and his wife actually received farms from Zanu PF, and many other top officials within the opposition received farms from Zanu PF. And we have seen him at the farm. And he has not come out and refused it.
After election.
Yeah, you can go ahead and play it, Wilbert, if you find it.
Yeah, okay, all right. I was just queuing it up for you. Okay, I'll play it then.
All along, there was no any other account.
There were accounts, several of them. President Chamisa, I'll tell you, he has got an account. Somewhere. All right? Party has got an account. Coulthard, when we formed the CCC in January, he drove from Bulawayo to Harare to open an account as the treasurer. And the criminals around President, because they've already captured him, they told him that we've opened the account. And then he said, wow, how? No, we've opened the account. We have used the technical staff to open the account. So there's an account, which is pseudo, where Coulthard is not a signatory, yet he was the treasurer. He drove back. So there are multiple accounts.
So now, as the SG open account, they're not the treasurer.
Yes, I am the Secretary General.
So where is the role of the treasurer? Who's the treasurer?
Well, we appointed the acting treasurer.
Who is the acting treasurer?
No, you will see when these things come, when these things unfold. There is somebody who acted on that basis in order for us to facilitate that opening of the account. But your question was on accountability.
Yes.
Yes, the party fears accountability. Let me tell you, we know one thing for certain, that we received the money from the European Union that was intended to pay the polling agents. So Zanu PF received the same amount.
Is this a myth or is it fact?
It's not a myth. It's not a myth. We received that money. Our polling agents today are not paid.
How much money are we talking about here?
We're talking about 2.something million. And in next week, early next year, I'll be writing to the president. I need accountability. Those people who were in charge of that money, because that money was disbursed outside my authority. We need accountability. Our polling agents are not paid as we speak. Where did that money go? We went to the campaign. We received monies. So people are coming out and say, we put the money on the presidential campaign. We put the money on the members of parliament so that their nomination fees are paid for by the party. And most of the nomination fees, individuals, candidates paid for their money. Where was that money? Where did that money go? So we will be writing to the president soon, seeking for accountability. So we are putting the order. Those who will be outside or those who misappropriated the funds, then law is going to take its course.
You know, I've heard this on social media, this issue of money, the European Union and all those kinds. I would say, I mean, for the record, I don't have the evidence or the know-how that, but I'm sure what we are talking about, you know, for a fact that the money came in, because we are trying to make sure that it's not speculation, but there was money that was.
There was money. That money is confirmed by ZANU itself. They received the money.
So it was confirmed by ZANU and
yes.
not Triple C.
Both parties that were contesting in the election were given that money. That money was there to do one, training of the polling agents, deployment of the polling agents, taking care of the affairs of the polling agents, food, transport, etc., and stuff like that, so that the election becomes credible. We didn't want a situation whereby the election, there is no polling agent for another political party, therefore it jeopardizes, it compromises the outcome of the election. So that was the essence of that money.
So is it not the money that Zanu PF rejected?
Well, on paper they rejected, but they accepted the money.
So in your party, who took the money?
This is where we are. This is why I'm saying we need to establish who received that money.
I'll stop it there. Again, this is the issue of accountability. In a healthy and functioning democracy, leaders must be accountable. One of the problems that have been undermined the performance, if not the essence of parties in Africa, is corruption. We cannot pretend that we don't have a problem there. We do have a serious problem. And for those who do not want to accept that leaders must be accountable, this is the point where you've got to say, you've got to rethink the whole thing. I said earlier in this of this platform that Savango was able to claim the position of being Secretary General of Triple C because of Chamisa's strategic ambiguity policy. And now he is being embroiled into this issue of funds, accounting for them. To be fair to him, he's not the first one to raise this issue. Others have raised it. Chilton Wende has raised it. He has posted in one of his X posts that the election agencies, some of them were not even deployed. Others who were deployed, they were never paid. And the money was misused. This is a serious matter. And I dismiss those people, those Zimbabweans who say, oh, well, you know, Zanu PF is not accountable too. Yes, Zanu PF may not be accountable too. But we are trying to have a party in the form of the opposition who are going to implement the democratic reforms to make the country a healthy and functioning democracy. We cannot then justify that the opposition should fail to be accountable just because this ruling party is also unaccountable. They're defeating the whole point. Ben.
I totally agree with you. You are trying to get rid of the old corrupt and incompetent system, and you are bringing exactly a similar one. It really doesn't make any sense. And you know, for those that always keep defending such truths, you know, of course it may be said by, you know, a questionable guy in Chavango, but if you had your ears to the ground towards the 2023 elections, you will know that this money was there and this money was given. It was there. It is not a myth. This money was there. And Zanu PF actually held on to it for some time until then giving it away. And everybody within that circle or Chamisa circle blew it away. It was not used for what it was intended to do. Now, this is a character that we want to give the keys to our country. I mean, look, if we are very upset with the Ziganandas and this is exactly the same thing. This is how Mugabe started doing our country down. A thief does not just go and start stealing big things. They start with the small things. And it is with the small things that we must hold them accountable for. If we cannot do that, then they will get away with murder. And I think it is time where the people of Zimbabwe, you know, even though we are desperate for change and we want a way out of the current mess, we still need to have our head screwed on right. We need to question and, you know, really dig deep before we make a choice on what needs to be done and who is going to lead us in doing it. Because I personally think the likes of Nelson Chamisa and his friends, they have shown through the years that they are incompetent and cannot be trusted with the small things, and hence we cannot give them the bigger things, like to give them full control of our country. That would be the biggest mistake ever. We are taking a young Zanu PF and giving him the keys, and which will be very, very difficult to remove. If we could learn from how it was difficult to remove Mugabe, and then we went in, we put on, you know, Mnangagwa, and how difficult it has been now, we should be learning not to do the same mistake the third time.
I've got a different take on that one to you, Ben. I think in this particular case, anyone who thinks that Nelson Chamisa and company are committed to rule Zimbabwe are making a big mistake. These individuals, MDC guys, when they failed to implement even one token reform during the GNU, they gave up. They decided that they will play along with Zanu PF for a share of the spoils of power. This is what made the GNU fail. Mugabe was smart enough to realize that if he bribed Morgan Tsvangirai and company with the trappings of high office, the E-Class Mercedes-Benz for all the deputy ministers, the ministers, the 2 deputy prime ministers, and Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai himself. And then the generous salaries for all the elected officials, MPs, senators, and of course, the cabinet, as named before. Generous salaries and allowances. And then for Morgan Tsvangirai, the US $4 million mansion in Highlands. And we have since found out that the top brass in MDC were also given farms. Here is a video clip of somebody revealing that very point.
Bhazi rikafira musango, munhu asina kwaari kuenda bhazi mumu anofara kuti ndo patopumba pake nditori nevamwe vangu pana. Munhu anorwadziwa nekurara musango munhu ane kumba.
Taibadana kumba kwangu.
But amana kumba kugombezi rangu reria. Mana so. But munhu asina imba atete kurara musango. So opposition ino make sure kuti vanhu vaya vawane minda. But may he so yeah, rest in peace Tsvangirai. Praise ravo vanga vainaro. Chamisa anaro.
Anaro Chamisa. Ane family.
Kana azoramba. Ndoenda newe.
Rikupi.
Ane farm.
Ribi.
I know madress munhu anetsa kuti focha but anaro chakudza off camera.
Okay.
Ane mine.
Ane
makaseo.
Yeah?
Yes. Biti. Ane praza. Hauna kumboona ere picture ya Biti achitenga mombe kuna Temba Mliswa. Zikuisa kupraza. One of the biggest beef producers in the Matabeleland region, the Washman Ngwe.
Okay.
Yes, ane praza. Anautenga beneficiary by land reform. But what they did is to discourage their people from acquiring my farms because why is out munhu akaona something chapiwa nehurumende achapikisa.
Are you for real, Mr. Ganishai?
Nomubvunza Washman Ngwe kuti haasi kuita beef here, producer beef here paprasi. Tonyandanetsa naupo ching'ono gore rere. Handiti kuti stand yaupo ching'ono standard ine painogumira. But vakatotaura nehurumende nemasabhuku ikaextendwa because aita god.
In other words, as much as Zimbabweans may want to pretend otherwise, these MDC-CCC opposition leaders, they are Zanu PF Team B in all but name, playing for Team A to win and for Team A to have legitimacy. And for anyone to therefore welcome Zanu PF Team B with a view that they are the genuine opposition and they will take us to the promised land, it beggars belief. It only shows that we have not learned anything from the past, from history. I repeat, Nelson Chamisa is coming back onto the dancing floor. And he will be talking about reforms, etc., knowing fully well that at the end of the day, you will still call his supporters to participate in those flawed elections without even one token reform implemented. Just as he did in 2018 and 2023. Nothing has changed here. And for those who want to see Nelson coming back as proof that he has changed, you are being very naive. And that is the honest truth.
I totally agree with you. We can't continue burying our heads in the sand and pretend everything will be okay. There is need for accountability on both political divides. One cannot take Zimbabwe as a dance floor where they can waltz in and out as they please, and always be blaming everybody else around them. We have seen how corrupt Zanu PF has been, and now we are seeing how corrupt the opposition is, and we need to put an end to that. We need to make a more conscious decision, and a very, very bold decision, and very right decision. These current opposition that we have are incompetent, corrupt, and are playing for Zanu PF to win. That is all that is to it. And Zanu PF in turn will pay them handsomely with bribes and allocations of properties and monies for their participation, leaving me and you to struggle through the years. This has been their operation from day one, and we need to put an end to it. And I say, if there are not going to be any reforms, there should be no election. We should stop participating in rigged elections. We should stop being conned into participating in rigged elections, only to perpetuate our own suffering, whilst these two groups enjoy the spoils of war. Thank you.
I'd just like to play the last bit of that Change Radio audio.
Continue.
Meanwhile, President Nelson Chamisa has used a metaphor of dust to explain the significance of his political comeback. In a social media post, Chamisa said dust is evidence of movement and traction, noting that progress cannot happen without motion. He said one does not kick up dust while standing still, adding that rising dust shows forward movement and direction. Chamisa urged supporters not to fear criticism or resistance, saying dust responds to genuine action and cannot withstand strong winds of change.
That is, again, another typical Nelson Chamisa irrelevance. We are being asked to believe that as long as there is dust and there's movement, we are making progress. People have got to ask themselves, MDC, CCC, have been on the Zimbabwe political stage for the last 26 years and counting. They failed to implement even one token reform. And not only that, they are the ones who have been lying to people, calling them to participate in flawed elections, promising that, no, this time we have devised ways of stopping Zanu PF rigging the elections. And then at the end of the day, find that Zanu PF just blatantly rigged the elections again. So whereas Chamisa is trying to use this metaphor of dust and movement as proof that there is progress, what I would like to remind the people of Zimbabwe is that this is an opposition party that clearly does not know where it's going. To be quite honest, MDC will never implement any meaningful democratic reforms because they wasted the opportunity to do so during the GNU. And ever since, they've been participating in flawed elections for a share of the spoils of power. What Chamisa is trying to convince the people to do is to keep participating. And in this case here, he's trying to convince us that because he's moving and there is dust, we are making progress. If after 26 years, you have not implemented even one token reform, how anyone can call that progress beggars belief. Indeed, in this case here, I can honestly say Chamisa does not only know where he's going, he's actually going in the opposite direction because the country is sinking deeper and deeper into the abyss. Zimbabwe is a failed state. And as much as Zanu PF has been at the helm for the last 46 years, Zanu PF's rule would have ended by 2013 at the latest if MDC had implemented the reforms. As long as we trust MDC, Chamisa and company to implement the reforms, Zanu PF will remain in power. And that is the reality. Yes, the dust shows that we are moving, but we are moving in the wrong direction. The country is sinking deeper and deeper into the abyss. Chamisa is going to con millions of Zimbabweans out there to participate in 2028 without even one reform implemented. And let me rest assure you, no one is going to come in and help us. Because if we insist in participating in flawed elections, it is our fault. We cannot blame other people for our own stupidity. We have known that the elections are flawed, and we are the ones who have been keeping on participating in flawed elections. We are just about to close, but we'll give you an opportunity to say something, DR. Go ahead. Hello, DR. Can you hear me? Sorry about that. Like I said, thank you very much, those of you who were able to join us today. We'd like to continue the discussion tomorrow, same time, 6 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock Zimbabwean time. It's on the same link. And DR, if you can hear us, I hope tomorrow you'll be able to join us earlier so that we can have a discussion. And to Ben and everybody who was able to join us tonight, thank you very much. Have a good night.